So I'm going to be talking, when it says manage your digital life, I'm really thinking mostly about you as a teacher helping your students manage their digital lives. But if some of these tips and tricks and ideas also help you with your own digital life, of course, that would be a wonderful thing too. I want to ask first if people are familiar with the term digital natives and digital immigrants. I think Henry has showed you how to do a poll, so if we can have a yes, I've heard of it, or no, I haven't heard of this idea. I'll give you a definition in just a minute, but I'm curious how many people are familiar with the terms digital natives and digital immigrants. Looks like many people, some yes, some no. Basically, it's talking about people born either before or after the widespread use of digital technology. In the United States, I guess around 1985, but it's different in different countries. So there's a theory that digital natives are those younger people who were born into a world where the internet existed, where cell phones existed, and lots of this modern technology was already around them all their lives. Whereas digital immigrants were people born before the widespread use of digital technology, people like me who are older, who had to learn these new systems as an adult. So I think these are very useful definitions, but with them comes the idea that digital immigrants and digital natives have different technological skills. And for a number of years, I would see websites and hear talks about how digital natives were somehow better at using cell phones and better at using PowerPoint and faster and more efficient online. And those of us who were digital immigrants would always, in a sense, speak with an accent, if you know what I mean, and that we would never be quite as good at email and Skype and everything as those younger people. I don't happen to think that's true. The definitions that might be true when you were born is a fact when you were born. But what I've noticed from the students that I have in my classes and that I do that I teach when I go all over the world, Asia, Africa, Latin America, Europe, the United States, I see plenty of students, native speakers as well as non-native speakers, who have terrible email habits, who don't know how to find something quickly on Google, who are no better at managing their cell phones than anybody else. So I would caution people to beware of thinking that just because your students are young, they're somehow good at technology. I think sometimes they have less fear, but I think they have the same challenges with clutter and too much information and time management that anybody does, regardless of when they were born. But technology is everywhere, and I think that brings the same challenges that physical clutter brings in a physical environment. You have email, you have a desktop computer, a laptop computer, possibly a tablet, you have a phone, maybe a smartphone, maybe a feature phone, you have different systems at schools, you have different systems at your friends' houses, and it's hard for students to manage all of this efficiently. And you might wonder, why do we as English teachers have to care about this? Right? We are not these students' parents. We are not telling them to clean their rooms. But I think we should have to care as English teachers because if students are not efficient, they aren't learning well. And if they aren't learning well, of course that affects our class and what we do in it. And we are very lucky as language teachers that really any topic in the world is relevant to our classes, because any time you give information, you are using reading, writing, listening, speaking, grammar, and vocabulary. There's no topic in the world that we can't easily integrate into our classes. So I do think it's important for English teachers specifically to address these ideas, because in most schools, nobody else is. So I'm going to talk about two main areas. I'm going to say we have half an hour here. We don't have 3 hours. I'm not going to read you a lot of research and give you a lot of citations. I want to get quickly into the ideas and then talk about how you can teach these things in your classroom. But I'm going to cover two areas, organization and time management. If we had more time, we could talk about other things, but that's what we have time to cover today. If we look at organization then, I'm going to break that down into three categories. Email, desktop, whether that's the desktop of your laptop or your tablet or your phone or your desktop computer, and folders and what's on your hard disk. So our students have email. There are reports saying that younger high school and college age students these days use email to communicate less than adults. I know with my son, I have a 21-year-old son who's finishing his last year of university. If I want to contact him quickly, email is not the best way. He is faster on Facebook chat or on a text message. But important information is still coming to students by email. Employers are contacting them by email, universities are contacting them by email, and many students have several email accounts. They have one account for their university, perhaps they have a Gmail account for their friends, so they need to be able to handle their email account. And because they don't necessarily use email so much to talk with their friends, their email accounts are often a mess. I looked over my son's shoulder once as he was home for Christmas. He had an inbox with something like 1,250 unread messages. And I said, you can't find anything with 1,200 unread messages. And he said, oh, sure I can. But he was wrong. And I looked at some of his message, and they were things like, oh, you know, Facebook is telling you that these 3 people have a birthday today. Things he didn't need. And because he didn't need them, they stayed there as unread messages in his inbox. So I would counsel students first to consider a free account like Hotmail or Yahoo or Gmail just for any kind of what I would call junk. That could be Facebook notifications, it could be advertising from, you know, your favorite stores. But really, I want them to unsubscribe from whatever they can. There's no reason to get any Facebook notifications if you are going to go on Facebook every day. You don't need to know that Abercrombie & Fitch is having a sale, right? They're always having a sale. You can always find a coupon. You don't need those daily emails or weekly emails coming into your life. So I want them to unsubscribe from anything whenever they can. In the United States, I know that most universities require students to check their school email every day. That's actually a requirement. The idea is that then no student can say, oh, I didn't get your message, because professors are still using email. They're not chatting on Yik Yak or WhatsApp or something like that. They're sending email. So students need to be checking their school account or their work account if they have a job at least every day. Then they need to start organizing what they want or need to keep and delete everything else that's old. In order to do this, I mean, if you are someone like my son and you're looking at 1,250 unread emails, it's going to take some time. I would suggest they spend 5 minutes a morning or an evening deleting old emails. What I do is if I'm watching television, I'll do it during advertisements. You can pull up your phone, delete some emails, pull up your laptop, delete some emails, and then for things that take a little more thought, maybe 30 minutes once a week until your email is gone or your unnecessary email is gone. I would suggest that they start from the very oldest emails. Of course, you can arrange your email by date. Start from the ancient history of 3 years ago and work your way towards the present. Also check the sent email. Most email programs keep everything that you send as well as what you receive. You don't need to keep all of those emails. If you find something you no longer need at all, a lot of email programs will let you organize something by the sender, so you can group everything from, say, Facebook notifications together and delete it all at once, very fast and efficient. You can also search for email strings or senders and collect it into one folder. If I have a lot of email from Henry Firth at Macmillan, I don't want to delete it. It's probably important. It's probably about my webinar. But it's going to be easier to find if it's all in one folder, rather than one here, one there, one 3 weeks ago. So teach students how to organize things into folders. You might think they know how to do this, but you would be very surprised if you actually checked their inboxes. Desktop. By desktop, I mean what students look at when they open their laptop or open a computer and look at the screen. And I think that's important because that's what puts you in the mood for studying, right? You open that up, that's the feeling with which you are going to approach your work. My poor son, I'm going to use him as a lot of examples. Please don't tell him. But actually, he knows about the next example. I looked at his desktop and I said, wow, what a mess. You can't find anything. You need to clean that up. What I'm going to show you next is a picture of his laptop desktop after he cleaned it up. After he cleaned it, it looked like this. And I looked at that and I said, oh my goodness, you can't find anything there. And he said, yes, I can. And I said, no, you can't. But if you sit down to do your homework and that's what you see, you are going to start disorganized. You are going to forget that you have something important. You're not going to know where to find things. But in his mind, he thought that he had just cleaned his desktop. So although at that point he was 19 or 20 years old, I sat down next to him and I said, what's this? What's this? What's this? What's this? And just the way that you would organize brainstorming into an outline for a research paper, we picked major categories and then put things into folders by major categories. And when we were done, it looked like this. So he had 4 folders. He went to 2 different universities. So he has one for the University of Washington. He has one for his Cornell stuff. That 3rd folder says YOLO swag. I don't want to know. I think that's all personal stuff. And then he has his music folder on the back. Inside all those folders, we did some organization. I think there's more to be done, but, you know, I didn't want to spend the entire Christmas vacation organizing his computer. But now I think when he turns on a computer like this, it's going to be easier to find things. It's going to be easier to get in the mood to study. You turn this on, your homework is already going to be not done as well or done as efficiently as this. So you want to think, what is on your computer? What are you keeping there? How many years do you need to go back? For me, because I work as a textbook writer and books sometimes have several editions, I actually need files going back sometimes 5 or 10 years. I don't necessarily need them on my current laptop, but I can say, well, I'll probably need things going back 4 or 5 years. After that, I still need it, but I don't need it every day at the touch of a button. So you can take older things, put them on a CD, put them on a flash drive, put them on an external hard drive, put them somewhere else, and then take it off your desktop. Photos that you will never look at again, or photos that you don't like, files you'll never read again, delete them, delete them, delete them. And of course, once you take things off your laptop or your computer, you are also rewarded with a machine that runs more quickly and more efficiently. So that's another nice little benefit to cleaning up, is you get a more efficient machine. So how can we help our students do this? I think you can tell them to go home and take care of this stuff. They will nod and agree, and they will go home and not do it because their homework feels more important. But if you gave them time in class, 5 minutes Monday morning, 10 minutes Friday at the end of the day or the end of whatever your work week is, maybe at the end of an activity or during lunch if you have students who eat in your classroom, if you gave them class time and said, take 5 minutes and delete emails off your cell phone or clean up things you don't need off your laptop, tell them in advance they'll do this the next day so they'll bring their devices, and you do that periodically, then you know that it will happen. If they develop the habit in your class, they're more likely to do it at home. You can ask them to digitally tidy for 10 minutes at night. Once they've started the habit in your classroom, they're more likely to be able to do it at home. Have them share before and after pictures like my son. You probably didn't notice because we went through his pictures rather quickly, but he had some words that he put to name his folders that he thought were perhaps not polite enough for me to show English teachers. And I said, that's fine, we'll just blur them out in iPhoto. And so if they want some kind of privacy, they can, you know, put a line or censor their names or something when they do their before and after pictures. But if they bring that in, that's very motivating. Students love to show progress. They love to see what other classmates have as before and after pictures. Then give them extra credit points for demonstrating organization. It doesn't have to be a huge number of points. Even if you said 1 extra credit point on your next 50-point test, that will feel so motivating that you will actually get a lot of hard work out of your students. But you want them to have this feeling when they sit down to do their work, not a feeling of, oh, I'm already tired. And I think that's what clutter does to you. It makes you feel already tired before you begin. So let's move on to our second area, time management. I think a big challenge with time is students perceive time different from reality. I remember when my son first started doing homework in school around about middle school age, he used to complain that he had so much homework, he could never finish. And at first I was a little worried, why is the school giving so much homework to such a young child? Do we have a crisis in American education? Should I be talking to the school board? But when I looked at his assignments, they didn't really seem that long. What happened was his fear of how long the assignment might be made the assignment seem longer. So I borrowed a technique that I had read about, and I got a timer. And I said, you know what, we'll set the timer for 15 minutes. Work for 15 minutes, then you can have a 5-minute break. Then we'll work for another 15 minutes, then another 5-minute break. You can work for 15 minutes, can't you? And oh yes, 15 minutes does not feel scary at all. So we would set the timer, he'd work for 15 minutes, and almost always the assignment could be finished in that 15-minute time. What he thought was a 2-hour assignment was really a 15-minute assignment. So that's an adaptation of something we call the Pomodoro technique. For adults, they usually recommend 25 minutes, then a 5-minute break. Another 25 minutes, then a 5-minute break. Another 25 minutes, then a 5-minute break, and then a half-an-hour break. So the first thing I would recommend your students do is get and use a timer. This is a link for a free online timer. Of course, you can use a physical timer with a bell if that's more useful. And this one will set as a Pomodoro timer of that 25-5, 25-5, but you can also choose the length of time you want to set it for. And remember, I'm going to give you a number of links for interesting apps online, and you don't have to write them all down now because this session is being recorded. Macmillan will send you a link, and then you can get to all of these websites again. There's also There are also trackers. This one called Creative Works which has both a free and a paid option. I've actually never looked at the paid option, so I don't know what extra things it does. But on the free option, you can put in everything that you do online, and then it will give you a report of how you spend your time. How much time you spent on your history homework, how much time you spent on your English homework, how much time you spent on Facebook, how much time you spent on email, how much time you spent on a music site. And it shows it to you visually in a chart. And it's very interesting. And I find when I've used this that just knowing that the information is going to be reported to me makes me behave better, because I don't want to see that I spent 2 hours on Facebook and half an hour on my research. I would rather get a chart that looks nicer. So even knowing that something is tracking my time makes me spend my time better. So if students have work to do on their computers, I know when I have books to write or articles to write, I need to turn off my internet. And that's hard for me. I feel my mind arguing, what if somebody needs to contact me? I said, really? You can't spend 45 minutes without anybody contacting you? Of course you can. I say, oh, but what if I need to check a spelling or research something? So what I do in my document is I highlight in another color or with a highlighter everything I want to check and look up later. And after my 1 hour or 2 hours without the internet, I turn the internet back on, I check everything all at once, and I've been much more efficient. Set your email to check itself only once an hour, not every 5 minutes or once every 2 hours. If you find it hard to turn off your internet, or you find yourself turning your internet back on, you are not alone. And that's why there are 3 applications here that I will give you the addresses for that will forcibly block your internet. Freedom blocks all of the internet on all devices. So it will turn off the internet on your laptop, on your tablet, and on your phone for an amount of time that you choose. You can choose, for example, 1 hour or 2 hours, and it will block the internet. You can try it for free. I think it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Then if you like it, you can go to the paid option. The same company makes one that I like very much called Antisocial, which allows you access to the internet but blocks social media sites. So it will block Twitter, it will block Facebook, it will block Pinterest and Instagram and all of the social media sites that can get you in trouble when you're trying to work efficiently. That's also free to try, and then if you like it, you can spend $15. If you get Freedom and Antisocial together, I think they give you a discount, but I can't remember what it is. If you are a Mac user, there is also one called SelfControl that lets you choose which sites to block. So you can put in, for example, Tumblr, Instagram, and Facebook if those are your problems. And it will block just those sites, but still lets you on to Google if you need to research or something. I know it seems crazy that we pay for internet access and then later we are paying to destroy our internet access, but if you're not getting your work done, then these are very useful. So if you don't want if you don't need to pay for something that will forcibly block your internet, you can just go and turn off your Wi-Fi, turn off your internet connection, go to a place that doesn't have a good internet connection and work there instead of connected to something online. Teaching ideas. I would have students time themselves online or use a tracker. They could keep a 1-week diary or a 1-month diary. And first I would have them just notice. How much time are they spending online and what are they doing? They can use that free tracker, that the Creative Works one that I showed you earlier, or they can just do it themselves. And then have them talk about where they spent their time. They can do this in writing, they can do it in conversation, with reflections, and make them, encourage them to start making judgments. Did I use my time well? And if not, why not? Right? I wanted to work on my homework, but my friend kept messaging me. I like my friend. It's hard for me to say no. They have to know what their problems are before they can start to solve them. Ask them to try a new time management system, whether that's turning off the internet for half an hour or 1 hour, or blocking just social media sites, and then reflect on or do a presentation on their results. You can make this a regular assignment or, again, an extra credit opportunity. It's a nice thing, I think, for students whose grades are low because it gives them a chance to bring their grades up, but it might also solve the problem that is causing them to have low grades in the first place. You can assign research topics for individuals or groups, so give them a phrase, zero inbox, digital clutter, Pomodoro technique, and then a few questions to answer. What's the problem? Why is it a problem? If they are looking at just one technique, like Pomodoro technique, they can explain what the solution is and analyze it. Or if their topic is something like time management, you can ask them, what are some solutions for people who have time management problems? Then they can do group and whole class discussions, they can give presentations, and talk about habits, problems, coping techniques, progress they have made. In conclusion, to manage their digital lives, students need instruction. They have to know what to do and how to do it, and they need time, hopefully some time in class at least to start, so they'll be able to use their time wisely at home. It's okay if your own digital life is not perfect. You can still tell people how to manage their digital lives, even if you do not have a zero inbox. So please don't think that because you sometimes get distracted online, therefore you shouldn't help your students manage their lives. Students who are more organized and less distracted can do faster and better work. So taking class time to work on these areas will actually save you time and probably bring better results. That's the end of our presentation. I think we have, by my clock, 2 minutes. If there have been any questions, I haven't really been checking the chat box as we go, but if you have any questions, you can ask them here. And remember that the recording will be made available, so if you want those websites, you will be able to find them again. So I hope this is useful for everybody, and they will get, you can all have a zero inbox. What do you think about cloud management? For me, it's very important because I don't work for any university or institution, so I need an online backup system in case something happens to my laptop. So I pay for cloud storage and I back up everything because otherwise if I lose a computer, I've lost my life. So I'm a big believer in cloud management. And then if there are no more questions, I will turn you back over to do teens have self-control where internet access is concerned? I think some do. I think it helps to at least discuss the issue. I think some teens are able to turn off the internet, some aren't. But if they can at least recognize that it's a problem that's making their lives more difficult, then yes, they can. My son used to set a timer on his own for video games. We didn't give him a time limit, but he gave himself a time limit. And he did that from age 12. So I think teens certainly can have self-control, and if they don't, it's a skill they need to start working on because their workplaces are not going to discuss self-control with them. So that's a skill, it's part of growing up these days that they need to have. Yeah, I think it's an important issue too, and I don't want schools and parents to think that, hey, you know, if a student is born in 1990, they will automatically have great digital organization skills, because I don't think that's true. I think they need just as much help cleaning their digital lives as they do cleaning their rooms when they're living in the physical space. Okay, I'm going to turn off my video and talk now and give you back to Henry. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that people tuned in from all over the world at different times, and I know you have busy lives, and I'm pleased that you could make it. So goodbye from Greece. I'll see you later.
Thank you, Dorothy. The wonders of technology. It's great that she was able to join us from Greece. I was a little worried that things might not work, but it all turned out fine. And I'm going to stop the recording now. And that